Remember when Lyft did this cute thing with the logo where the cars are going through the L and the Y and the F and the T? That was a cute logo. I've never entirely understood why they moved away from that design. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. Welcome to my channel. The second video of the day. There might be a third, who knows? After all, we're all in self-quarantine right now. However, this isn't necessarily a news story. This is just a public questioning what's going on. Now, if those of you have not watched my last video, I kind of alluded to what we were going to talk about in that video, so if you want to watch it, hey, there's a link at the end of this video about the last one that just went up, so you might feel free to do it. But if you don't want to, I guess this is self-contained enough, but I basically talked a little bit about how Uber and Lyft were offering some compensation. In fact, let's kind of look at the headline. That Uber and Lyft to offer paid sick leave to any Voldemort disease-infected driver. And basically, the way it was stated, let's see how it was stated to get some extreme clarity on what's going on. So, from Uber, they stated, "We are supporting drivers and delivery people who are diagnosed with the C virus or placed in quarantine by a public health authority. We believe this is the right thing to do." And then the Lyft spokesperson said, "We will provide funds to drivers should they be diagnosed with the C virus or put under individual quarantine by a public health agency." Now then, here's what's confusing about that. Because quarantine means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. When most people think quarantine, it's you're going to a building, you are stripped down, you're sprayed, your clothes are burned, you're put in a little jumpsuit, and then you sit in a white room and you throw a tennis ball up against a wall over and over again for like 2 or 3 weeks straight. That's what a lot of people think quarantine is. Quarantine can be a lot more simple than that. My wife, for example, is technically in quarantine. She's not feeling sick. She has no symptoms of actually being sick or having this virus. However, she has Crohn's disease. Therefore, her doctor has decided it would be best if her and any immediate family members that she's in frequent contact with stay home in self-quarantine. So she's working from home. She's in the living room right now while I am here doing the videos. She's loving working from home, by the way. She's kind of like, oh, I hope we can leave again, but I kind of want to stay working at home. And, hey, I understand the appeal of that. However, she has officially a doctor's note that says she should stay home. Now, does that mean she, qualifies for this little protection, this 14-day policy? Now, if it was me, I would say yes. However, there is some confusion about that. This is a tweet from Harry Campbell, aka the Rideshare Guy, friend of mine, by the way. Actually, Harry, you and I should do like a live stream where we talk about Susan Fowler's book. Now that I just think about that. I mean, we're both not busy right now, I suppose. And anyway, what he is sharing is this email exchange that a Lyft driver who had similar orders from the doctor to stay home contact Lyft and find out exactly what this means. And Lyft's response, frankly, it doesn't look like a lot of people over there are understanding exactly how this is supposed to work. Now, let's go over this message by message. So the driver writes, "I'm still waiting for someone to contact me about my doctor's note and desire to self-isolate and receive 14 days paid sick leave. When will someone contact me? Should I keep driving until someone responds?" Now, first thing that we need to note right here is that this person does not appear to actually be sick. However, they have a desire to self-isolate. They have a doctor's note that says, hey, this is probably a wise idea. And who knows why the doctor wrote that note. I think if doctors had their way, everyone would self-isolate for 2 to 3 weeks. And like there'd just be no one on the roads. Like we'd all buy our food and then we'd shut everything down for a couple weeks. And we'd just stop this thing right here and then. Or maybe this person has a condition, an immunity system problem that makes going out and doing something like Lyft a lot more dangerous. It doesn't matter. We don't know. But for all sakes and purposes, it almost doesn't matter here. The bottom line is they have a doctor's note of some sort and they want to self-quarantine for 14 days. So does this qualify under Lyft's 14-day sick leave? Well, Lyft's response is confusing. They say the health and safety of Lyft's community is our priority. Notice how that's, by the way, its own individual message to show that, it's a self-response thing right now. With the recent news around everything that's happening, we want to make sure Lyft drivers and riders know the best way to protect themselves and others when sharing the ride. Also, its own individual message. Interestingly, even though they say they want to make sure Lyft drivers and riders know the best ways to protect themselves, rather than providing like a link or maybe some instructions on what they believe is proper etiquette in the situation, they respond, the proper team will reach back via email. So no response on their part. Now this individual, whose name is Marcus, and also seems to be part of Gig Workers Rising, so good for you, Marcus, writes back, so yes, I should keep driving until someone contacts me. When will they contact me? Now, yeah, that's an interesting question. Okay, so he wants to self-isolate. I assume it's a he anyway. And the doctor has a note. I think this person clearly needs the money. They need the money, and that's why they're trying to get the 14 days. They can't really afford to not work that 14 days. But here's the thing. They are in a rock and a tough place. I mean, they're asking, should I keep driving under this circumstance? And what's interesting about this conversation is that there already has been an indication that there was a doctor's note and a doctor's visit. And granted, the person doesn't say that they are sick with this thing, and there's nothing to even imply that they are. But the fact that there was a visit to the doctors, most companies would probably look at that and take a step out of an abundance of caution. I'm not saying I want this person to be deactivated. However, we live in crazy times where, if you see someone so much as, cough for whatever reason, they just get something stuck in their throat or something, and they cough a little bit, and they don't cough for the rest of the day, people freak out. But Lyft's response doesn't even respond to that. They say, Marcus, right now, we don't have a time frame. If you decide to drive, you can do it. And that, I think, is where it gets really dicey. Now, again, this has been a huge conflict and a huge controversy among drivers. Should you drive or not? You know my opinion on this. I think it's irresponsible to do so. I think you need to stay home. Unfortunately, a lot of people can't afford to stay home. And interestingly, this little paid sick leave that Lyft and Uber were offering was probably the saving grace for a lot of people. Hey, this encourages them to stay home. But you look at this exchange and you have no idea what their thought process even is on how to handle this situation. I mean, someone comes to you and say, hey, we have a doctor's note, we want to self-isolate, and at the very least, there should be a response, you would think, on whether or not this person qualifies. But the individual in question that Marcus is communicating with does not seem to be aware of what that is. They don't seem to have any answers for going forward. They don't have any information about what the paid sick leave actually entails. And they have the same wishy-washy thing well, if you decide to drive, you can do it. I mean, I'm sure they're choosing the words carefully. They can't say we don't encourage you to drive, because that would come off like an employee. They can't say, well, we recommend you don't drive until we have an answer, because not only does it come off as an employee, who knows how long that will actually be. So they take the same wishy-washy response that they do with most things. If you decide to drive, you can do it. What are we going to say? I mean, personally, I think they could make it easy by shutting off the apps and just giving all the active drivers 2 weeks paid time off. Really just be part of the solution. But it doesn't seem like they're part of the solution, really. And in fact, I don't even think the team over there from this email exchange alone even suggests that they know what they're doing. Like I said, if you look closely, I actually think all three of these messages were canned responses. They, looked at the writing and they picked the three responses that most closely outfitted. But then when this driver pushed just a little bit more, they had to admit, hey, you know what? We don't have a time frame for that, and if you decide to drive, I guess you can do it. So yeah, this is not super encouraging. You look at this, and again, I want to be a little kind because everyone was completely caught off guard by this situation. I mean, when the movie theaters, when we first got this news, movie theaters followed the CDC guidelines and said, okay, we're going to cap our theater attendance, we're going to do this. And then a couple days later, they found out that wasn't even going to be good enough. They had to completely shut down. We've never, and all these companies are now offering curbside pickup. There's a lot of territory we don't know. We're dealing with this for the first time. It's unprecedented. It truly is. We're living through history right now. We are living through history, and I acknowledge that. But the thing is, if I might be so bold, and maybe it's maybe I shouldn't presume anything actually. However, this has been going on long enough at this point where I would think they would have an answer for an email like this. Because this has been going on for at least a couple weeks, and we're heading into the third week of almost complete isolation at this point. You would think at this point that Lyft, because we don't have a conversation with Uber about this so far. You'd think Lyft would have had this figured out, like, how are they going to deal with questions like this? How are we going to determine who gets the paid sick time? What documentation are we going to demand? What are we going to request our drivers to do should they come with us with a concern? You would think that after a couple weeks, someone higher up would have devised a system to properly communicate with the drivers on what to do going forward. Instead, that does not appear to be the case. Now, I will give one more little pointer. On this email, it does not have a date. It just says Saturday and it says some times. I will like to highlight that this was shared on Twitter March 22nd, 2020. So, from my perspective, this was done fairly recently because this is the 23rd. It's Monday as of recording this. So the 22nd was Sunday. And that would make Saturday like, yeah. So most people would not sit on this is what I'm trying to say. So I think this was a very recent thing. And if this was very recent, it doesn't speak very highly of Lyft's ability to put a policy in place and actually enact it for the drivers. And again, I know we're in unprecedented territory, and I would like to know what happens in a week. Like, I'm actually gonna follow. I'm gonna follow Marcus. In fact, let me do that right now while I am thinking about it. Look, this is like catching going viral. I think, but yeah, I'm gonna follow to see if there's like any update on this in the near future. Apparently, he's posted several conversations with Lyft, and that's not encouraging. But anyway, yeah, I think at this point Lyft should really have an answer for him, and if they don't, that's extremely concerning. But hey, that's where we're gonna leave this one right now. What do you all think about this? What do you think about this email? Like, does this make you nervous? Does it seem reasonable? Are you not concerned at all? Like, what has your response been? Have any of you tried to contact Lyft or even Uber, for that matter, about paid sick time? And what has their response been? If you want to even share those emails, you can email me. Would love to do videos about them. But I'd love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.